And we are going to get started. So, welcome to the Cannabis Conversation, Understanding THC and CBD for the Next Generation. We are very happy to have you with us today. Just a rundown of what we're going to do. We're going to just go over cannabis, little 101. How does it affect our bodies? Cannabis and the trends we're seeing with teens. Cannabis today, what has changed? Some of the local laws in Iowa, common myths, misinformation, resources and support, and then an interactive portion, just kind of going and talking about what we would do in situations. So, housekeeping, please sign in using the chat, name and email address. The presentation is being recorded. If you want to have your video on, that's great. If you don't, that's great too. We do ask that you keep yourself muted other than the times that we say unmute and interact and talk to us just to help with background noise. Um, and then after the presentation, we will send out a recording and PowerPoint to those of you who we have the email for. During the training, we do just want to mention that you will see the use of cannabis in videos. There will be imaging and things like that. If at any time you feel uncomfortable, feel free to step away. We don't ever want anybody to feel uncomfortable, but there will be some things that just might trigger. Why is mentoring doing this training? So I am one of the mentoring coordinators in Howard, Elmkey, and Winneshiek, and one of our goals in mentoring is to help youth stay away from risky behaviors and be able to say no to alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. And we know that providing youth with an extra adult role model like a mentor, they're less likely to engage in risky behaviors. So that is why we do these trainings, and that is why we try to get the word out to all of you so that we are educating people and we have helping our teens. If you would like more information about mentoring, please go to the website www.helpingservices.org/mentoring and you can check it all out. We have lots of fun. I am going to turn it over to Will, our Luther College intern, and he is going to take it away with the Cannabis 101.
Yeah, so I think a good place to start in this presentation is talking about what exactly is cannabis. What's the main thing we're talking about here? So it's a plant, and there's two different kinds of this plant that are commonly used. So we have the sativa and the indica plant. Like I said, they're the two major types of the cannabis plant. Um, Both of these strains have a different range of effects because of the ratio of compounds found within them. So the sativa plant is higher THC levels, so it's more psychoactive. More people call that a head high when they use sativa. Indica plant is a little bit different. It has higher CBD levels. Um, so that's more of a body high and more used for relaxation, anxiety, sleep, things like that. Some common terms that people use when talking about cannabis is weed, marijuana, pot, bud, chronic, and dope. There's obviously more terms out there, but those are the most common ones that we see. Talking about again, what is THC versus CBD? THC is the primary psychoactive compound found in cannabis and produces a high or euphoria by binding to cannabinoid receptors in the brain. CBD, on the other hand, is non psychoactive, like I said, and doesn't necessarily cause a high. While both are cannabinoids found in the cannabis plant, CBD is often used for its potential therapeutic benefits, again, like pain relief, anxiety reduction, and improved sleep. So we'll move on to the next slide. How do people use cannabis usually? If we could go back one slide, Colinne.
Sorry.
Nope, that's okay.
Why? It's not letting me go back a slide. What the heck? Hold on. Sorry about that. I don't know what its problem is.
Worries. Okay. How do people use it? So it can be used in a number of ways. The most common ways include rolling it up and smoking it in a joint, which is kind of like a cigarette, or in what people call blunts, which is cigars or cigar wrappers that have been partly or completely refilled with cannabis. We also see smoking it in a pipe or a bong. People have vaped it through electronic vaporizing devices like vape pens or other vaporizers that people have seen. We have seen mixing it in food and eating it, brewing it as a tea. The foods and drinks that we see, like cookies, cakes, brownies, cola, alcohol. Some people inhale the oil concentrates and other extracts from the cannabis plant. This is usually called dabbing. Um, THC oils and concentrates used in vaping and dabbing often involve using highly concentrated forms of THC. So that causes really intense highs. And it also can contain additives or be contaminated with other substances that may be harmful. People also use what we call tinctures, which is taking that oil and usually dropping it underneath the tongue or on the skin so that it quickly gets absorbed into your bloodstream. See if we can go to the next slide. Perfect. So how does it work in the body? It enters into the body first, through the ways that we talked about, mainly through inhalation or ingestion. The active compounds, especially THC and CBD, are absorbed directly into the bloodstream. And then we see entry into the endocannabinoid system. Once in the bloodstream, THC and CBD interact with the endocannabinoid system, or the ECS, which is a network of receptors throughout the brain and body. The effects peak around 10 minutes after consumption and typically last 1 to 3 hours, though they can linger up to 8 hours. That's when we're talking about inhaling it through smoking or vaping or dabbing. So it starts quickly, and depending on how much you use, it can last up to 8 hours. Eating edibles, the effects can usually peak around 2 hours, so it takes a lot longer for the high to kick in after consumption. But depending again on how much you're taking, especially with edibles, those effects can last up to 24 hours. Finally, we have metabolism and elimination. The liver breaks down the cannabinoids into metabolites. Sorry, these are eventually eliminated from the body through urine, feces. Some THC metabolites can stay detectable in the body for days or weeks, again, depending on how much you are using at the time. Move on to the next slide.
Okay, so how does it affect the body and the brain? You can see on the slide slow-term effects, long-term effects, and addiction risk, intense anxiety, fear, distrust, panic, or hallucinations. These effects are more common when a person either takes a large amount, the THC levels are higher, and or the person has little experience with using cannabis. And adolescence is an important period of brain development, and cannabis use may influence the brain in ways that could lead to long-term harmful effects. Studies show that regular heavy cannabis use in adolescence is associated with negative effects on working memory, processing speed, verbal memory, and academic education attainment, employment, and income in young adulthood. Cannabis use at a young age has also been linked to other mental health conditions, including the likelihood of developing psychosis and to developing cannabis use disorder later in life. And then, as far as addiction, yes, cannabis can be and is addictive. Chronic heavy everyday use or almost use of a cannabis product with THC is associated with developing cannabis use disorder, a type of substance use disorder. Studies estimate that 22 to 30% of people who use cannabis have the disorder. The strongest predictor of cannabis use disorder is how often someone uses it, but other factors like family history of drug use and how long a person has been using cannabis can also play a role. It's defined, so cannabis use disorder is defined by the Diagnostic Statistic Manual, and you have to have 2 or more of a bunch of conditions and things like that, but it can be diagnosed as mild when a person has 3 or more of those symptoms, and moderate or 4 or 5 of those symptoms, and severe would be 6 or more. And then also just a little, there is chance of overdosing with these products. It's common to think that you can't, but you can, and you can also have a bad experience as well. So some trends that we are seeing with cannabis and teens. In a report, a study that was done in 2022, 30.7% of 12th graders reported using cannabis in the past year, and 6.3% of them reported using daily in the past 30 days. From the same study, 6% of 8th graders and 15% of 10th graders, and then 21% of 12th graders reported past year cannabis vaping. So that's putting it into the vaping devices. And cannabis use can have permanent effects on the developing brain, like we already talked about, when use begins in adolescence, because we know that the brain isn't fully developed until you are 25. We are now going to watch a video. Please let me know that it is working and you can hear it.
Here's a medical miracle for you. A drug that relieves pain, reduces anxiety, improves your mood, and has no side effects. Too good to be true? Well, millions of Americans believe that drug is marijuana. Are they right? I'm a physician, board-certified internist, and addiction medicine specialist. I've treated thousands of people whose addictions to opiates, alcohol, and other drugs were wrecking their relationships, their careers, and their lives. I'm telling you, marijuana can be both harmful and addictive, just like many other substances. What I've seen firsthand for 20 years is now becoming obvious to other doctors and researchers. Increased use of marijuana is leading to increased psychosis, bipolar mania, and even spontaneous vomiting, especially in adolescents and young adults. The younger the user, the less developed their brain, the more harmful the drug. Hate to burst your bubble, but that is the science. A 2022 Gallup survey found 30% of Americans between 18 and 34 use marijuana. When scientists at the University of Michigan asked young adults between 19 and 30 if they'd used it within the past month, 29% said yes in 2021, compared to 21% in 2016 and 17% in 2011. Daily marijuana use across all ages nearly doubled from 6% in 2011 to 11% in 2021. That translates into over 13 million Americans compared with 5 million in the decade before. There's no such thing as a bad drug. They are just molecules that affect human physiology. Most Americans use some form of a recreational substance, but ignoring or denying potential adverse effects creates a potential for serious harm. There's no free lunch with Mother Nature, so there are always side effects. My goal here is not to shame or scare anyone, but to raise awareness so you can make informed decisions. Speaking of that, keep in mind that marijuana has gone corporate. According to Forbes, legal marijuana is now a $20 billion industry and growing. There's a lot of vested interest in making sure you don't hear the bad news. But there are risks. And the more you use and the higher the concentrations, the more the risk. Of course, most people who use marijuana won't have a psychotic break, develop bipolar disorder, or become schizophrenic, just as most people who drink don't develop alcoholic liver disease or alcohol dementia. Some individuals, and not a small number, will have a significant reaction to marijuana, and there's no way to know in advance. You won't know until it happens, and then it might be too late. It wasn't always like this. The marijuana people use today is not the weed of my generation. It hasn't been for at least 2 decades. What changed? The answer is found in 3 letters: THC. THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol, the main psychoactive or mind-altering component of cannabis. It's what gets you high. Keith Humphreys, a Stanford University professor of psychiatry and drug policy advisor to Presidents Bush and Obama, testified to a Rhode Island State Senate committee that THC concentrations had increased from 3% in the 80s up to over 20% in 2017. According to the New York Times in 2023, that figure is now nearing 100% THC, a 30-fold increase. And as the stuff gets stronger, so do its effects. The 2021 National Survey on Drug Use and Health found that among the 52 million Americans 12 and older who used marijuana in the past month, 16 million were addicted. So nearly 1/3 of users can't quit, at least not without help, despite the drug's negative effects on their lives. In 2023, JAMA Psychiatry published a study of marijuana habits among 6.5 million Danes over the age of 16. The study found that marijuana addicts were twice as likely as non-users to be diagnosed with clinical depression and up to 4 times as likely to develop bipolar disorder with psychotic symptoms. A study in Norway, also published in 2023, concluded that among people who had no pre-existing mental health issues who'd had a psychotic incident after using marijuana, 27% develop what has been characterized as schizophrenia. Are you with me? 1 out of 4 perfectly healthy people who started using marijuana on a regular basis developed a severe mental disorder. Some of them were my patients. 2 of them were my family members. 1 developed an addiction, 1 psychosis. They're now both fine but required treatment. They are among the lucky ones. But others weren't so lucky. Joshua Jimenez started using at 14 and was hospitalized 3 times for marijuana-induced psychosis. He committed suicide in 2021. He was 22. Kevin Bright was 15 when he started using marijuana to allegedly self-medicate for depression. 3 years later, he suffered his first psychotic break. He ended his life at 29. Joshua and Kevin are not simply anecdotes. A 2023 JAMA study found that cannabis-linked attempted suicides have increased at an average rate of 17% a year. Still want to take that miracle drug that relieves pain, reduces anxiety, improves your mood, and has no side effects? I'm Dr. Drew Pinsky for Prager University. If this video helped to
Okay, we're just going to take a little time here, probably 3 to 4 minutes, open up the floor for some discussion, talk a little bit about that video, what stuck out to you. Feel free to throw it in the chat or unmute yourself. I know all the times that I've watched this video, it still sticks out to me that 1 in 4 will have those psychosis breaks. So yeah, just let's have a little discussion about the video and anything that maybe was new for you or information, but just hearing it again. So feel free to throw it in the chat or unmute. Thanks, Maddie. The younger the user, the more harmful the drug. THC has risen in cannabis over the years. Yeah, those are all. Large portion of society believes that marijuana can be addictive. I like that he shared stories of personal addiction stories. The negative adverse effects that happen in these stories are unfortunate but necessary for people to hear. Awareness is important. Very much so, Jordan. Thank you. Yeah, we thought he did a good job. People assume cannabis doesn't have negative effects. Higher THC is good. Yeah, the risk level, people, a lot of that we're finding is centered around because it is becoming legalized. So the perception of risk is becoming lower and lower, when in reality, it just isn't the case. So this is great, you guys. Thank you so much. I think we will move on. We'll
Yep.
talk a little bit more about cannabis today and what has changed.
Yeah. So talking about cannabis and what's cannabis today and what's changed. So like someone said in the chat, um, been a potency increase over the years, over the decades. THC levels today are much higher than they are in the past. Um, Especially in edibles, and a lot of younger users, like the guy said in the video, the younger the user, the more harmful the drug. And when they can get their hands on these edibles that aren't safely labeled with their potency, someone might take an entire edible, um, or they might take part of one but not understand that it takes at least 2 hours for the effects to kick in, and then take more thinking they're not feeling anything, which just leads to really negative experiences. There's also been a normalization. Social attitudes have shifted as well, making weed and cannabis in all forms a lot more available and seen as less risky, especially among young people. We also see a lot easier access, so cannabis is easier to get today because many places have legalized or decriminalized it, and now it's a big, widely accepted business. We know that celebrities, first one that comes to my head is Snoop Dogg, has their own types, strains of cannabis that they can sell to the public. When you think about young users who may idolize these celebrities and think, well, they're super cool, so I should buy their strain of cannabis and use it myself, again, that could lead to many negative experiences. So now we'll move into the local laws here in Iowa. Just to go over that quickly. So in Iowa, recreational cannabis is illegal. Um, Possession of any amount is a misdemeanor with possible jail time and fines. Medical cannabis is legal in Iowa, but it's tightly restricted to certain forms. So you can't have any raw flower. And obviously, there's limited THC amounts, 4.5 grams over 90 days, unless otherwise approved by your doctor. Hemp derived THC products are also legal for adults 21 and over. But when we talk about edibles and we talk about the THC drinks that we see in our local businesses, they also have strict THC limits. So there's 4 milligrams per serving or 10 milligrams per package. And then we're just looking at this map. All of you can just take a peek at it or take a photo at it. Take a photo of it if you want to look at it later. We see that really, really dark green is where cannabis is legalized completely. The next level is it's medical and decriminalized. Then we have some states who only have it legal medically. And then we have some states that only have decriminalized it. We have some states that do CBD with THC only. And then we still have 4 states that have said it's fully illegal. But we know that things are swinging, that cannabis is trying to be legalized across the United States. That'll take a long time, but we know that that's the way it's going. So it's good to know everything about cannabis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're just going to touch on a few of the common myths and misinformation. Like Will already mentioned, Snoop Dogg smokes lots of weed and has a brand, so we should try it too, is one of the myths. Just because a celebrity does it does not mean it won't have those negative effects. And then it's good for you and it helps relaxation is another myth. Information. While low doses of THC can produce calming effects, higher doses can induce anxiety, panic, and paranoia. Additionally, individual responses to marijuana vary from person to person. Some people may experience increased anxiety or other negative effects even with the moderate doses. Well, you can't get addicted to it. That is another myth we already talked a little bit about. But chronic marijuana use can lead to addiction. Research shows us that approximately 9%, or about 1 in 11 of those who use marijuana will become addicted. And this goes up to 17% in those who started using while young in their teens and increases to 25 to 50% of daily users. So the people who use it daily, and then like the video said and gave us those numbers, the people, there's 1 in 4 that are having those psychotic breaks as well. And it's natural, so it has to be safe, even for the youth. Just because something's natural doesn't necessarily mean that it is safe. Regular marijuana use during adolescence can lead to reduced IQ scores, poorer school performance, and higher school dropout rates. Resources and support that are available. So Your Life Iowa serves as a comprehensive resource for Iowans, but anybody can use it. You don't have to be from Iowa to use it. Seeking information about cannabis, including educational resources, legal information, support services, and more. Then IHHS, which is the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services Medical Cannabis Program. So if you're considering medical cannabis, this is the official source for like eligibility requirements and qualifying, how to apply, getting the card, approved product types and usage, things like that. And then the Iowa Cannabis Information Portal. This is an independent site, provides detailed insights into Iowa's cannabis laws, including the history and the evolution of cannabis legalization, legal limits on THC and product types, guidance on how to apply for that medical card appropriately, current debates, and proposed law changes. It's a great resource for staying informed about policy updates and legal rights if that is up your alley. And then support systems. Substance use treatment centers are around us in the areas. The one that is around us and serves most of our counties is Northeast Iowa Behavioral Health. And then there's NA like support groups and things like that. Online support communities are becoming a bigger thing. The Your Life Iowa does have a 24/7 text, call, chat line that if you or someone you know is experiencing issues, or your kids, just you can even call and just ask questions. And those are licensed counselors with that as well. So Will is going to take some time here, and we're just going to have another interaction section.
Yeah, so another kind of what would you do in this situation? We'll just take a minute or two to think of an answer we have, and you can throw it in the chat. You can unmute whatever you feel most comfortable doing. But the situation is, imagine you're a parent and your teenager asks you why marijuana is safer than alcohol. How would you respond in that situation? Take a minute or two. You can unmute. You can throw something in the chat.
So I always say I would turn it around back on them. Like, why do you think marijuana is safer than alcohol? What have you heard? And just like try to get the conversation going.
I see. I would explain that marijuana and alcohol both have risks. I would ask who told them it was and speak about effects of marijuana. Facts. Yep, that's
Perfect.
all good stuff. See some reactions there too. That's great. Cool. I think we can maybe, in case anyone has anything else, you can throw it in the chat. But for now, we'll just move into the final slide here.
Maybe.
maybe.
Yeah.
We'll just go over a few tips for you guys if you feel like you have someone to talk to that maybe is struggling with cannabis use or is asking you questions about it, kind of all those situations. So try asking open ended questions, questions that elicit more than just a yes or no response, such as, what are your thoughts about marijuana? Just getting that conversation going is really important. Stay positive. Find the positives in every situation, no matter how hard it may seem. Thanking them for their honesty if they're opening up to you about it and showing your appreciation in that way. Let your teen, if you're talking to your teen, know that you hear them. Reflect back what you are hearing, either verbatim or just the sentiment. Try saying something like, I'm hearing you, that you feel overwhelmed and smoking pot relaxes you. Just repeat back what you hear. Sum up and ask questions. Show them you're listening the entire time and ask for their input. Asking if repeating back, asking if you got everything right, if they have anything more to add. Again, just continuing that conversation. Asking permission is really important. Asking your teen or your friend or your family member, any of the sort, if it's okay to speak with them about their concerns and whether it's okay that you offer some feedback. And then finally, we have offering empathy and compassion. Insert understanding and show your teen that you get it. Try saying something like, I hear that smoking pot helps your anxiety. I'm sorry you're feeling anxious. I know that's a really difficult feeling. Can we think of some other activities that can help you relax? And then throughout these entire conversations, just basic active listening is important as well. Show that you're listening, repeat back what they're saying, show that you're getting everything that they're saying to you. Those are some good tips when having conversations with people about this topic.
Mhm. That's all we have for you guys. We have plenty of time for questions and evaluation. I already put the evaluation in the chat. If you can just click on there and take that for us, we need these evals. We appreciate you guys being here for this and listening to what we had to share about the cannabis conversation. But we are here. We will stay on for questions and comments. So yeah, if you want to talk about anything in the training or ask questions that maybe we didn't answer, we can try our best. After you take the eval, if you feel like you're good to go, you can jump off as well.